from Minerva. In today's video I wanted to focus on easy to sew fabrics that are perfect for beginner sewists. So when you're starting out your sewing journey, or especially your dressmaking journey, you're looking to sew clothes for you or other people, there are certain types of fabrics that are much easier to sew with than other types of fabrics. So when we are teaching people to sew here at Minerva, and we're advising on where to start, there are some really good types of fabric that make a really good starting point for people that are new to sewing, or people that are new to dressmaking as well. So often we have people that come to us that may have said on quilting in the past, or they've made bags or cushions, or they've done embroidery, things like that. So they're not necessarily a complete stranger to sewing, but dressmaking is a new thing to them. So depending on where you're starting on your journey, whether you've never sewn never sewn anything at all, or you've done a little bit of other things, or perhaps you've tackled an odd project or two in dressmaking, hopefully today I'll be able to guide you through where is a good starting place in terms of fabrics. So I've got 6 different types of fabrics in front of me here, and I'll walk you through those and tell you why I think these are really good starting points for beginner sewists and beginner dressmakers specifically. What I've also done is I've picked out a pattern which is beginner friendly, so perfect for those who are brand new to sewing, that is ideal to team with each of these patterns. And I think that's in a way equally as important as choosing the fabric, because if you choose a fabric that it may well be an easy to sew fabric, but if it's not correct for the sewing pattern that you want to make, then that might not make a successful garment. So it's equally important that we choose a nice and easy fabric to start with, that's appropriate for the pattern and the style that you want to make. So I'm going to talk through the 6 fabric and pattern picks that I've paired together, and we're going to start with the easiest and work our way through to still easy but slightly more tricky fabrics to sew. So the first one we're going to start with is if anybody asks us at Minerva, what is a great fabric to start with for an absolute beginner, that hasn't really sewn anything before, hasn't really worked on a machine, the fabric we would recommend is polycotton. So this is an example of one of our polycotton fabrics, and polycotton comes in a huge selection of plains, but it also comes in some really fun prints as well. So you've a huge choice, and you've loads and loads that you can choose from, and this one is a really pretty floral print design, but there's loads on our site. We always have a huge selection. Now, why would I choose polycotton as the number one choice for somebody that is brand new to sewing? Well, polycotton is a very stable fabric. It's nice and lightweight, and it's just really well behaved. It's a blend of polyester and cotton fibres, like I say, light to medium weight, quite crisp, very stable, irons really well, and it just does as it's told. So it really, it's nice and easy to cut out. It's not going to be all shifty and slippery. It just, it stays where it should, and when you're sewing with it on the machine, it's just really well behaved. So it is a joy to sew with. The other thing that's important with polycotton fabrics is the price point on these. They are, some of the cheapest fabrics that we have on our site. So, they are more cheap and cheerful fabrics. They're not particularly luxurious or the most fabulous fabrics we have in stock at Minerva. However, they're fit for a certain type of purpose. They are great for making so many different styles of garments, and because you're only cutting into a cheaper fabric, if it all goes disastrously wrong, it's then not the end of the world. And I think one of the worst things you can do as a beginner sewer is invest in some very expensive fabric, and it can leave some people terrified to do anything with it, which can often then put people off even beginning the project, and that's absolutely not what we want at all. If having just the freedom to be creative, have a go, experiment and enjoy the process without worrying, that's what it's all about at the beginning. So yeah, polycotton is like I said, very easy to sew, fantastic price point, loads of colours and prints to choose from, so you can have, you know, lots of fun in choosing something, you know, that suits your style. And in terms of what you can sew with polycotton, now because it's quite a structured, you know, fabric that has a little bit of stiffness, often the prints are a little bit stiffer than the plains. The plains can be a little bit softer, but you know, you can make things like simple tops, pyjama bottoms, pyjama shorts, a simple skirt, a pretty dress. Children's clothing is great for this. You can, you know, if you're starting right from the beginning and perhaps you want to sew, you know, like a cushion cover or a really simple tote bag, something like that before maybe you start with dressmaking, again, you can make that with polycotton. So it's a really, really versatile fabric. Now the pattern I've chosen as what I think is a really great pattern to start with if you're completely new to dressmaking and you want to have a go with you know, a more budget-friendly fabric is the Scout Tee by Grainline Studio. Now Grainline Studio have fantastic pattern instructions that really hold your hand throughout the whole process, and this really, you know, really is such a simple top that's ideal for a polycotton. So it has quite a deep round neckline, a very simple sleeve, you know, just a simple hem, such a simple pattern, and you know, coupled with the simplicity of it, with a really easy fabric like this, with fantastic instructions that you get with Grainline Studio. And I think we actually also have a free sew along on Minerva for this pattern as well. I think Jo did that one, who creates the most fantastic sew alongs for us here at Minerva. You know, so you can even watch a free sew along from start to finish that will hold your hand through making this top. So yeah, absolutely number one basic, perfect place to start. Now the next pattern I'm going to mention is a Tilling the Buttons. It's the Jamie pyjama bottoms. Now this is another fantastic place to start, and Tilling the Buttons patterns in general are brilliant for beginners. They've won awards for how easy to follow their patterns are, and all the instructions come with step-by-step photographs, so you can actually see somebody else, you know, making the garment as you go. And it comes with this one actually comes with a free video tutorial that's been done by the team at Tilling the Buttons, which you can see on our website. So in terms of the fabric, now this fabric is a cotton poplin fabric, which in lots of ways has, you know, it's lots of similarities to a polycotton. So this one is, you know, particularly beautiful floral design, really lovely, but again we have lots of, you know, every colour you can think of in plain cotton poplin, and there are so many prints on the website in cotton poplin. You know, your choices are absolutely endless. So yeah, I think it's fun when you're beginning to sew as well, you know, to work with fun prints, you know, and just have fun with colour and print, and you know, all the joy that brings to your wardrobe. Now, like you can see, this has a similar feel to the polycotton fabric. So you know, it has a little bit of structure, it's very stable, it behaves beautifully, presses really easily. It's a joy to work with. It really behaves itself does this fabric, just like the polycotton does. The difference with this fabric really is the quality. So this is made out of 100% cotton, so it feels beautifully soft. You know, you can feel the quality in this fabric. Not that there is anything wrong with polycotton, but it is, you know, it's just at the more budget end of the scale. So this, you know, we're going up in price with polycotton. So this is why this is my second suggestion. It's just as easy to sew with as polycotton, but because it's a little bit more expensive, you know, some of the designer ones can be more expensive. You know, so you might want to make this in your second project. But again, there's loads of things you can make with cotton poplin, like the Grainline Scout Tee would be wonderful. You can make you know, simple tops, you can make shirts, skirts, shorts, even summery trousers, summery jumpsuits, dresses, pyjamas, as we're going to come on to with the pattern. So loads and loads of different options with the pattern. So we'll come back to the Jamie pyjamas that I've chosen. So this pattern, like I say, is from Tilling the Buttons, that are just fantastic at guiding beginners through sewing clothes. And Jamie is their pattern that they recommend for absolute beginner sewers. So you know, they're very, very simple pyjama bottoms, either full length ones, or there's some cute pyjama shorts as well. And you have the waistband is just a simple elastic waistband, which is easy to create a good fit with. Very nice and comfortable to wear, and just really, really simple to sew. And there's also the option to have a little tie drawstring as well in the waist, so that's another option. And yeah, it's got just fantastic instructions that are going to absolutely hold your hand all the way through. So that would be my second option. Now the third option, so this is another fabric. It's quite similar to the last two we've seen. Now this is a cotton lawn, but what makes this fabric different is that cotton lawn is a little bit lighter in weight than a cotton poplin or a polycotton, and it is silky soft, silky smooth. I mean, this is the ultimate luxury cotton fabric. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, cotton lawn is still a very easy fabric to sew with. It's a lot of sewers' favourite fabric is cotton lawn, because you have the crispness, the stability, and the fact that it just behaves itself when you're cutting it out and when you're sewing it. But what cotton lawn has that the other two don't is a lightness, a silkiness, and a softness that gives a little bit of drape. So it's maybe a little bit more difficult to sew than the last two, but we're still in the very, very easy realm of fabrics to sew here. Even, if somebody came in and it was their first project and they were sewing with cotton lawn, difficulty-wise, that would be absolutely fine. Cotton lawn does tend to be a little bit more expensive, definitely more expensive than polycotton. It often comes in designer prints, which do come with a price tag, but the quality of it is just amazing. So that's another reason why it's my third choice in the list, because it comes with a little bit higher of a price point, but it is still really lovely to sew. And cotton lawn, what this does, whereas the other two is different to the other two, because of that drape, it does open you up to a few more pattern choices than what the other two might have done. So it has semi-structure and semi-drape, so you can choose lots of patterns that require either a structured fabric or a drapey fabric, whereas the last two, you're looking at patterns that require a fabric with structure. With this one, your options are open. So the pattern I've chosen to help demonstrate that is another really beginner friendly pattern. So this is the Ogden Cami by True Bias, and it is a very, very simple like a cami top with little straps, and it has a fantastic way of doing the facing on this pattern, which lots of sewers really, really love. Really easy to sew, really fantastic instructions that hold your hand all the way through. And with this pattern, I think this suits a fabric that has a little bit of drape. So it would suit, for example, the fabric that I'm wearing today. This is our Minerva exclusive viscose challis fabric, which, as you can see, is really soft, really drapey. As beautiful as this fabric is, I wouldn't recommend it to an absolute beginner, just because it can be a little bit shifty, a little bit slippery, and it's just trickier to handle. So it's not really difficult, but you might want a few projects under your belt before you tackle something like this. Now this pattern would absolutely be beautiful in this fabric, but like I say, wouldn't necessarily recommend that for a beginner. So that is where cotton lawn comes in, because cotton lawn has enough drape, so not as much as this, but it has enough drape to make this a really successful garment. But you've still got the stability and still got the ease of sewing and cutting it out. So yeah, those two are a match made in heaven, I think, for a beginner sewer. and yeah, it's just super simple, a lovely style. The other thing that's great about this pattern as well is that whatever size you choose to make it in, and this is a really great size inclusive pattern as well, but whatever size you choose to make it in, because it's just a small, you know, small garment, it's a simple cami, it doesn't take that much fabric. So if you decided to treat yourself, you know, to one of the more expensive, beautiful quality cotton lawns, you're not going to need huge amounts of fabric again. So, you know, it keeps the cost down for a beginner's project. Now the next fabric I've got, so we're going slightly more difficult here, but still absolutely fantastic for a beginner, and this is our washed 100% linen fabric. Now linen fabrics, you may have heard me if you've watched you know, other videos that I've done, you will know how much I love linen fabric, and it is just an absolute beauty to both to sew with and to wear. If you don't like fabrics that crease, this probably isn't for you. But if you love the natural look, the slubby texture, that feeling that you get from linen clothing, you know, if you've bought linen clothes in the shops before, then you will love linen. And it really has the most wonderful character and just handle that you don't get with any other kind of fabric. I think it's one of those that, you know, once you've sewn with the linen, if you loved it and you love the natural look, you can't go back after that. You'll absolutely love sewing with it. Now linen is just, as a fibre, is more expensive, so again, you know, we're looking at higher price points than the budget fabrics we looked at earlier. But as far as whether it's easy to sew, linen is wonderful to sew with. It presses like a dream. It just behaves itself wonderfully under the machine. You know, if your fabric is creased, then you are best to press it first, you know, to give it a good iron first and make sure that you've got all the creases out. But really that's, you know, the only tip I would need to give you. It's just a wonderful fabric to use. It comes in lots of plain colours, and we also do our own range of Minerva exclusive prints. So if you really like, you know, the print I'm wearing and thought, oh, I wish, you know, I could be sewing fabrics like this, but I'm saying, you know, I wouldn't recommend this base cloth, you know, you could try our Minerva. It's a linen and viscose blend. So it's a little bit different to this one in that it has a little bit more softness and drape, but still absolutely great for a beginner to sew. And yeah, a perfect place to start. You know, if you're looking to work with linen fabrics and you want a printed fabric. So the pattern I'm going to suggest for this one is another Tilly and the Buttons pattern. So they really are great for beginners. You know, it's the sort of I guess the selling point about their brand, that they you know, they've got such fantastic instructions, and they just break everything down into you know, really easy sort of step by step. So this pattern I'm suggesting is the Stevie pattern, which comes as either a top or a dress. So it's great that you've got both options in there. And well, it's a top or a tunic, they're calling it. And it's a really simple, so a round neckline, otherwise plain on the front. On the back it has a seam detail at the top and a seam detail running up to the back of the neckline, which you can choose to either have as a button closure fastening or a tie fastening, which I think would be the tie would be the easier of the two. And the sleeve is a grown-on sleeve, which means it's part of, in fact, the one I'm wearing today is a grown-on sleeve. So you don't have to set in the sleeve on that. The sleeve is literally the part of the fabric of the front piece. So it's really lovely and easy to sew, again perfect for a beginner. You do have, on one of the options, you have a turn-up detail on the end of the sleeve, and there's the option to add a patch pocket on the front as well if you wish to. So I think this pattern is a good one in that if you go for the absolute basic, most simple option, you know, that's obviously the simplest, but then, you know, maybe once you've made that, you could then make the option with the button closure, you could then add the patch pocket, you could then do the turn up detail on the sleeve. So, you know, it will give you a couple of different sort of a few more skills that you can learn from the one pattern. and I think it would be beautiful in a linen. It would be very much like the pink version that is on the envelope there. Hangs really well, perfect balance of structure and drape. Yeah, and a perfect starting point for anybody new to sewing. Now the next two fabrics I've got might surprise some people because they're both knits. Now, so many people we find are terrified of sewing with knit fabrics, and you know, sometimes we'll have people that come to us at Minerva and they've sewn, you know, all their life, you know, they've sewn for 30 years and they've never ventured into knit fabrics because it just, you know, it scares them, and perhaps, you know, they've heard a horror story, or you know, they've just been put off for whatever reason. But I honestly don't think you need to be scared of sewing knits at all. Now don't get me wrong, some knits are very tricky to sew with. You know, if like you're looking at an ITY knit fabric that slips and slides all over the place, or a silk jersey, something like that, they can be a nightmare. You know, we're not looking at anything like that today. We're looking at nice, easy, stable knits to sew. So yeah, I really absolutely don't think you need to be scared of sewing knits at all. And you know, the first four fabrics, yes, would be my recommended place to start, but if your first ever dressmaking project was in a knit fabric like this one I'm about to share with you, that would be absolutely fine. Which, you know, may surprise some people, but what is great about a knit fabric, and this is the key, is that creating a fitted garment out of a stretch fabric, I think, is so much easier than trying to do it out of a woven fabric. So you'll notice all the patterns I've picked today, none of them are particularly fitted, which, you know, they are beautiful styles, but you know, we're sticking to a looser over fit kind of style, or you know, things like tunics or pyjama bottoms that, you know, just aren't particularly fitted. Now with a jersey fabric, because of the stretch, you know, you can make something that fits your body measurements, but if it's not quite right, you know, if it's maybe just a touch tight on the bust, or a touch tight on the waist or the arm or wherever, the fabric can stretch to fit your body. So being absolutely spot on with the measurements just isn't as crucial with a knit fabric as it would be with a woven. The other thing about knit fabrics is so much of modern clothing these days, you know, when you think of the things that we have in our wardrobes, t-shirts, hoodies, joggers, dresses, just different styles of tops, even pyjamas, so much of it is made in knit fabrics. So I think, you know, when I was a beginner sewer, I learnt to sew with knit fabrics quite early on, and that was because I wanted to make clothes in knit fabrics. You know, the finished thing that I wanted had to be in a knit fabric for it to be what I wanted it to be, you know, for it to be a comfortable garment that was the sort of thing that I wore all the time. So that's one of the other reasons as well. I think it's really important when you're learning anything new that you don't get, you know, put off because you're doing something that's super easy. That's great, but if it's not something you want to make, then it's not going to be particularly inspiring and it might put you off. You know, which is the last thing that we want to do. So even if it means starting with a slightly trickier fabric, so long as we get the pattern right and we don't go for anything too difficult and we get the right type of knit that's nice and stable and easy to sew, I think there's no problem with that at all. So the fabric I've chosen here as my #1 recommendation for new beginners that are new to sewing or new to sewing with knits, you know, perhaps you've done some of these projects and now you want to venture into the world of knits, is our cotton and elastane jersey. So a cotton jersey, as opposed to say a viscose jersey, a tencel jersey, a modal jersey, a polyester jersey, a cotton jersey, because it's a cotton, like some of these earlier fabrics, it has the stability that the cotton fibre brings to it. And the elastane content is what gives it the stretch, but gives it stretch recovery. And what that means is when you stretch it, it pings back into shape. Now that's quite key, because if you're going to create something fitted that you want that wiggle room on to, you know, to allow you to achieve a good fit easily, you need the stretch recovery, certainly for most styles of garment anyway. So this one is our beautiful melange jersey, and all that means is that the threads that have gone into knitting this fabric to create the fabric have sort of like different shades of the same colour. So it creates a really beautiful fabric that's, yeah, it's just got a little bit of interest to it, other than something that's completely plain. But we do have, you know, lots of cotton and elastane, completely plain fabrics here at Minerva as well. So if you wanted something just completely plain, we have those as well. But this, yeah, comes in a whole range of colours. It's a fantastic quality fabric. Like I said, the quality of that cotton is just beautiful, and it's, you know, it's absolutely, in my opinion, the perfect place to start for beginners, because even though you know you're going to have to deal with the stretch of the fabric that you didn't have to contend with on the last fabrics, but because it's cotton, it's not going to be too shifty. They do curl a little bit at the edges, so again, that's something to get used to. But yeah, perfect place to start. Now, the pattern that I've chosen, so this is actually a menswear pattern. I wanted to make sure I included something for menswear in here. And this is the Jarly Nico t-shirt or top. So you have different options with this pattern. So, and the different options are mainly the sleeve length. You know, it is a round neck, raglan sleeve jersey t-shirt, and you've got a short sleeve, a 3/4 or a full length sleeve, and the neckline is done with a neckband, which I really like that way of finishing a jersey t-shirt. Again, the instructions in Jarly patterns are really good, and what's great about these patterns is it actually includes 27 different sizes, so it covers from children right the way through to men, to adults. So yeah, a fantastic pattern, and it's just such a good basic for a jersey top. So, you know, if you wanted one for women's wear, you know, something similar to this, which we, you know, we have lots of different ones on Minerva. In fact, we do now have a filter on our pattern product page, and there's a difficulty filter, but we recently added a beginner option. So if you just click on beginner, clicked on women, and clicked on tops, and then clicked on knits, that would give you only patterns that show you beginner friendly tops that are suitable for knit fabrics for women. So it will narrow them down to the selection that we would recommend. So yeah, the things to bear in mind when sewing with knits is you're going to have to treat the fabric differently. So you're going to need to stitch it in a completely different way. Now, a really fast and great option is to use an overlocker. I love my overlocker, and you know, I've been sewing for many years now, so you know, I saw it as a good investment, and I really wanted one, and I do lots of sewing, so it was worthwhile to me. Now, if you're a new sewer, you're very likely not to have an overlocker. You know, perhaps you could borrow one, but you know, you do not need an overlocker at all to sew with knits. I sewed with knits for years and years before I got an overlocker, and you can achieve results just as good. So if you don't have an overlocker, the options, so you could sew with a zigzag stitch, which I think you would struggle to find a machine that doesn't have a zigzag stitch, so that's an option available to everyone. You could also choose what's called a triple stitch or a lightning stitch. Now, the lightning stitch is the one, you know, it looks like a lightning bolt, and that's the one that people often use, I find, when using a regular machine for sewing knits. Personally, my machine, I don't think it actually sews that well, and my machine is a fantastic faff machine, it's amazing, but I just don't think it gives as neat a look for me personally. So I like what's called a triple stitch, which is 3 lines. That's how it shows it on my machine anyway. And what that does is it sews a stitch that goes back and forward as it's stitching, and that naturally gives it stretch. So it just looks like a straight stitch, but it has stretch in there. So that's my favourite method, if not using an overlocker. But all 3 of those are absolutely fine options to use on knits. The other option that's now available is you can actually use just a regular straight stitch, so just as you would, you know, sew in a woven fabric, and you can use a thread that's called Mariflex thread, which is a relatively new thread from Gutermann. We also do some larger spools from a brand called Metler, and their thread, they call it Seraflock. So Seraflock or Mariflex, both the same thing, and it's basically a fibrous kind of thread that has elastic naturally built into it. So you can sew just an ordinary straight stitch, but when you then come to stretch the fabric, your stitches will stretch with the fabric. It's fantastic, and I must admit, I mean, I've sewn with it quite recently. You know, I was just kind of experimenting really and testing it out. Like I said, I do love my overlocker, but I really wanted to give the thread a go, and I must admit, I mean, it's very tempting just to sew everything with a straight stitch now with this thread. It's really, really good, so do take a look at that as well. And in terms of needles, now you will ideally want a different type of needle for when sewing knits as what you would with wovens. So with wovens, you just choose a universal needle and you choose the size based on the thickness of the fabric. So a cotton lawn and a polycotton, you'd want a finer needle, probably like a size 70. The poplin, you'd probably want a size 80. A linen, a size 80. If it was a particularly, you know, a bit heavier, maybe a 90. But, you know, around that ballpark, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, a knit fabric, you ideally want a ballpoint needle. And the reason for that is when you, the way a knitted fabric is made, the fabric is literally knitted as opposed to woven. So woven fabrics have warp and weft threads that literally are woven together to create a woven fabric. Knitted fabrics, if you've ever seen somebody knit by hand, it's a very similar idea to that. You know, it's obviously just done on machines and, you know, much finer, but it is one yarn or thread that creates the fabric. So that could have a, you know, it could unravel. Now the edges don't fray, you know, it's unlikely to, but if you pierce a hole in the centre of that fabric, as you would do as your needle stitches into it, it could make the fabric unravel, which one, wouldn't make the garment last as long as it could do, and two, it might just make for a not very neat stitch line. So what a ballpoint needle does is, it, as the name suggests, it has a ball point on the tip of the needle. So what that does is every time your needle on the machine goes into your fabric as you stitch in, instead of piercing a hole in the fabric, it finds a hole within those threads. So that means it doesn't create a new hole, it finds one that exists and goes through that. It's really, you know, it's quite clever really, and they're very inexpensive to buy. So if you are going to be sewing with knits, I really would recommend a ballpoint needle. And yeah, to look at, you know, they're really not much different. You sew with them exactly the same, but it can absolutely just make a neater finish for you. So that's the first knit, and obviously quite a bit of information on that. Now the next pattern I've got for you, so this is maybe going ever so slightly more difficult with the fabric. I mean, I don't really think so. What this fabric is a loop back French terry. And I mean, this is one of our Minerva exclusive prints, and isn't that just gorgeous? This design is called Dancing Lights. I'm actually making a top in this at the moment. I absolutely love this fabric. Now, how this fabric is different to the last one is that it's a little bit thicker, and it has loops on the, very, very fine little loops on the back of the fabric, which adds to its weight, and it gives it, with this is made of cotton and elastane again, so the same sort of fibre content. Yeah, like I said, the main difference is that it's a thicker, heavier fabric, and it has those little loops on the back. And it definitely does have a tendency to curl, does this fabric, like the last one does, which is common with lots of knits. So again, because this is a cotton blend knit, it's quite stable. It's, you know, relatively well behaved. It's still got the stretch in both directions, but it's not a huge amount of stretch, so, you know, again, that's great for beginners. And this fabric, you know, is suitable for lots and lots of different styles of garment. So I mean, difficulty wise, maybe this is a little bit more difficult than the last fabric, but I don't actually think so. I don't think there's much in it at all. But this, you know, if you can sew both of them, it will open you up to be able to sew more types of garments, so it'll give you more choice on the styles that you can make. So my pattern recommendation for the loop back fabric is another Tilly and the Buttons pattern, and this is the Coco top or dress, which I love this style of dress. I still haven't made this pattern, and I have a copy at home. I don't know why I haven't made it yet. I really need to, because it is absolutely just up my street, is this. And it is it's a simple dress with an A-line shaped skirt, and you have different options on the neckline. So you have a scoop, sort of like wide neckline, literally very, very plain, or you have a funnel neckline as well, which I think maybe gives it a little bit of a 60s vibe. Very, very lovely. Then for the sleeves, you have different sleeve length options. Some of them which are just completely plain sleeves, again very easy to sew, and then others which have like a band detail on the end. You also then have different pocket options that you can choose to add. So yeah, quite a few options in this pattern. So you know, it gives you, you know, tops and dresses, more 60s vibe, or something more simple, patch pockets or not, so lots of choices. And this pattern, because of the shape of that skirt, you want a fabric that will hold its shape. Now the last knit fabric we looked at, you know, isn't really heavy enough or just sort of structured enough to hold the shape of that dress. So you know, you could make it in that, but it is going to give a different look. If you want it to look like, you know, the style on the envelope, our loop back jersey is absolutely perfect for this pattern. You'd still need to do all the things that I mentioned for the last jersey, so you know, a ballpoint needle, and either use some sort of stretch stitch or an overlocker, or use a stretch thread. But apart from that, it is a really easy pattern to sew. You know, it's aimed at confident beginners, but with her easy to follow instructions, you know, I think that's an absolute winner of a pattern for beginners. So that's all the patterns and fabric recommendations that I had to share with you today. So I know that was quite a lot of information, but I really hope that was helpful to anybody, you know, that is looking to enter the world of sewing, enter the world of dressmaking, and you know, perhaps you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed at just where to start, because there are so many fabrics on the market, so many patterns, and just, you know, putting the right two together itself can be daunting, especially when, you know, it's completely new to you. And I think sometimes, you know, shopping online, you know, it's fantastic in the choice that we have and the ease and the accessibility of it. But, you know, when you can't feel the fabric yourself, you know, and you're not used to, you know, what all these different terms mean, it can mean that you're kind of jumping in on you know, sort of hoping that you've ordered the right thing. So hopefully with that advice that I've given today, it you know, will make that first leap for you a little bit easier, and you know, we can help sort of hold your hand through the you know, those first few steps and projects that you might want to tackle. So do let me know in the comments below if you have any questions at all about anything I've talked about today. We're always more than happy to help, you know, as much as we possibly can here at Minerva. Do sign up to, you know, create an account on our website. It's completely free to join, and there is so much help, advice, tips, tricks, techniques that the community share, that we share at Minerva. We have a fantastic team of tutors and you know, sewing teachers that, you know, we share so many videos every single day. We have new tutorials or sew-alongs or you know, pattern and fabric pairings, things like that. So there's an absolute wealth of information on Minerva that's, you know, all completely free. So it's a fantastic place to start if you are a complete newbie to sewing. And you know, you can create a free profile and you can start, you know, getting involved in the sewing community. You know, if you have any questions, you can post them on Minerva, and the people on there are so welcoming and friendly and just helpful, and you know, wonderful community that are always there to help people. So that's you know, a fantastic completely free community that everybody is welcome to join. The other thing as well, you can share your own projects, and you can, share your works in progress, and I think that's really encouraging when you're a new sewer, to get that feedback from people. And it doesn't have to be perfect to start with. It's not about that at all. It's about having a wonderful hobby that gives us so many benefits, mental health benefits, physical benefits, I think just doing something with your hands and creating something from nothing is one of the more, in whatever guise you do that in, whether it's dressmaking or another kind of craft, it's the most wonderful thing to be able to, to have that freedom and creativity, and, be able to express yourself in that way. It's such a wonderful hobby, and, we are so passionate here about Minerva, about spreading the joy of sewing. So I hope today's video was helpful. And if you know anybody that is interested in learning to sew, or is just sort of starting out on their journey, please do point them towards this video, and hopefully we can be of some help. So thank you very much for watching today. All the products that I've mentioned I will tag below the video when we share it on Minerva or wherever that you're watching it. So you can click on all these products, the patterns and the fabrics, and learn more about them. You can see what other people have made, talk about their sewing experiences, read about that, and all the pricing details and all the colour options and everything will be there for you to have a look at. We do also at Minerva, if you're interested, offer a craft club membership, so you can sign up at any time, and that will give you 10% off everything on our website. So if you are looking to really start your sewing hobby, then that can be a fantastic way to save money, because you save it on absolutely everything that you purchase at Minerva, and that's always on top of any offers or promotions or anything that we're running, so you're always saving. And as always at Minerva, we always offer free worldwide delivery options, so wherever you're watching us from in the world, there's some fantastic offers there. So thank you very much for watching today. I really hope you enjoyed that. Please do give us a like and a follow if you did, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon on another video with more sewing goodness.